Hello and welcome to Physical Therapy, a movie podcast. We're here every week with movie recommendations, largely inspired by the world of physical media. My name is Kurt.
And I'm Sam.
We're also joined by our producer, Kimberly. Kim.
Yep.
Hello, Kim.
Hello.
Hello, Kim.
Hello.
And we are honored to be joined once again by filmmaker and friend, Drew Hanks. What's up, Drew?
Hello, thank you for having me back. I'm honored. I'm the one who is honored.
What?
You may remember Drew from such episodes as The Departed.
Woo!
Woo.
Period.
Today we are leaving Boston behind and heading to the streets of New York City to talk Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant, which just received a new 4K release from Kino. And then we're going to New Orleans to talk the spiritual sequel to Bad Lieutenant.
Reimagining?
Thematic exploration?
Which is, of course, Werner Herzog's 2009 Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. A word of warning that both these movies are explicit and extreme in their own ways, so we will be talking about some R to NC-17 level topics. But first, how are you guys' weeks? What did you watch?
You know, I pulled a movie off the shame shelf / pile, and I threw on Kino Lorber's Blu-ray disc of a Sean S. Cunningham movie from 1989 called Deep Star 6.
Oh.
Which is pretty much just Alien underwater. It's one of 5 Alien movies that came out in 1989 that all have about the exact same plot.
What are the other 4? Do you know them off the top of your head?
The Abyss, Lords of the Deep, Deep Star 6. I'm blanking on the other 2.
What's the other Alien underwater movie that Kino just did a 4K of?
Oh, Leviathan, that's one of them.
Okay, yeah. What's up with Deep Star 6?
It sucks badly. The creature, great creature effect, but the movie is 90 minutes long and you see the creature at the 1 hour and 3 minute mark for the first time.
Oh.
It's hinted at,
Wow.
Maybe 15 minutes before that. It's just like a pretty boring, stupid movie.
Brutal. Have you seen that, Drew?
I have not seen that.
I know the title. I don't know why, but
It's a great poster, some good creature effects once it gets going. Like the last half hour is kind of cool. It's one of those movies that I feel like people maybe a couple years older than us knew from like the Blockbuster era.
okay.
I think it was like a pretty popular VHS, and I think it aired on cable a decent amount. Any positive things that I've heard about this movie, it's very much based in a lot of nostalgia.
I just looked at the cover. It is good.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
I would have bought this if I had seen this cover before hearing your review.
And I believe I got it during a Kino sale for about $9. So
Okay.
What are you gonna do? But I will be selling it. So if anybody needs a Blu-ray copy of Deep Star 6, get at me.
Slide into those DMs.
Yeah.
How about you, Drew?
I was sick, I had a cold, and then I had food poisoning, so I wasn't watching a lot of stuff. But then once I got healthy and I came back to movies, I came back strong and hard and ready, and I watched Abel Gance's silent epic Napoleon from 1927,
Wow.
which is a BFI release. It's a Region B disc.
Okay.
They did a great job on this release. Apparently there's a new restoration. This movie's 5.5 hours long. They just premiered a new cut at Cannes that's, I think, 7 hours.
Oh, wow.
Just a little
Holy
over.
crap.
Yeah, 7 hours. The general consensus of the movie is that, like, it's very technically amazing. Like, it's on par with, like, D.W. Griffith level of just, like, cinematic inventions. It's the first, most notably, CinemaScope panorama he filmed with 3 cameras next to each other, or rather I think they were on top of each other and each angle slightly different.
What is the aspect ratio?
For that they do, I think it's like technically like a 1.85, but it is like super wide.
Yeah,
like it's extremely wide because it's like 3 Academy ratio shots next to each other lined up. And that's just in the last act of the film. No spoilers for this movie that's almost 100 years old. But yeah, just the last act features that. technology, I guess you could say. He uses handheld camera a way that's just like, there's fight scenes in it that remind me of like a Clockwork Orange kind of fight scenes.
How do you even do that in 1927?
Yeah, they just invented so many things. They just tried so many different things. There's like these crazy shots where they have like the camera on like, I guess just a wire technically, and it swoops through this like courtroom scene, and it's cross-cutting to Napoleon in like the ocean, you know, fending off a storm. And so like the metaphor is that like the legal system is a storm, and so, but it's insane. Technically, it's very insane. The story's kind of like, it's all right, you know, it's very much just a rise to power. They're supposed to make like 6 of these movies, and he only got to make this first one.
Wow. How's it stack up against Ridley's?
It's actually kind of funny because like they both, you know, don't really get it right, you know, like story wise. I am a fan of the Ridley version, by the way. I am a Ridley Scott stan here. So
sorry, Sam.
Yeah, sorry, Sam.
That's cool,
no
guys.
apologies.
That's fucking cool.
Drew, is there a Coppola score for this movie or something?
He supervised a restoration, and I think Carmine Coppola did a score in
his father, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the, I want to say early 80s.
I feel like I've seen vinyl soundtracks of it around.
I don't think this has that score. It has the score's really, really great, I will say, for this, and it's by Carl Davis. And Carl Davis does a lot of like new scores for silent films, and it's like orchestral stuff, and it's a 7.1 mix, and I have a 5.1 set up here in this room, and it was awesome. It was very immersive and very well mixed.
Yeah, I'm gonna maybe hold out and see about this new can cut.
Yeah, it weirdly doesn't have like a US Blu-ray release. I kind of was sleeping on this BFI one for a while. I've been region free since the pandemic, and I only recently like picked this one up, but it's very, very well done. I highly recommend it if you're interested in silent films.
Nice.
I'm surprised you've never gone region free, Kurt.
Drew is the first person I knew that was region free, and I was intimidated. I was like, damn, in the flesh? Region free?
He's here, man. He's here.
If there weren't so many goddamn region A's piling up all around me, I'd be more on top of it, I guess, but someday.
A lot of my favorite companies that were strictly like region B have since started doing region A releases, you know, like Powerhouse Indicator and 88 Films, and they're doing 4K releases as well now too.
Yeah, the 4K took care of a lot of those issues, but
yeah, except for your whack ass covers on your region A bullshit.
Boom, roasted.
Touche.
What'd you watch, Marty?
I watched the 1989 thriller Dead Calm, starring Nicole Kidman, Sam Neill, and Billy Zane. Have you guys seen this?
No.
It's directed by Philip Noyce, who did Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games, among other things. But this movie is co-produced by George Miller, actually. It's about a married couple, Sam Neill and Nicole Kidman, who are spending time at sea on like a small sailboat yacht situation while they're mourning the death of a child. And while they're out there, they come upon another yacht that's sinking, and the only like survivor on that boat is Billy Zane, who is sort of like shell-shocked and kind of out of his mind, and he gets on their boat and things go wrong.
Is this a remake of Polanski's Knife in the Water?
It's very similar to Knife in the Water. It obviously is like in conversation with it. I don't think it's a remake.
Okay.
It's very Hitchcockian.
Lifeboat.
Yeah. It's really fun. Really fun. Billy Zane, I went back and forth on his performance, like whether it was working for me or not, but ultimately it's a great movie.
How did you watch it again?
I watched that on Blu-ray. I got a Blu-ray of it from Orbit. It's just a movie that was sort of on my list, and I found a cheap copy of it there. So,
did anybody of note put it out?
No, Warner Brothers, but
never heard of them.
Never heard of them. It's cool though. It's a young Nicole Kidman.
Better or worse performance than Batman Forever?
Her performance in Batman Forever changed my life. Let's just put it that way. An awakening of sorts.
From kid to man.
Yeah, so, I got to give it to Batman Forever, but it's fun to see her in here. Sam Neill, there are shots of him in this movie where he just is like dressed exactly the same as Alan Grant, like has the same aviators.
Oh, man.
It feels like he has the same shirt on. I don't know why that matters, but
You know, Spielberg saw it and was like, this is the guy.
it has an amazing sequence in it where a boat is on fire at night in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean. That's like all practical, and it's worth it just to see that spectacle. It's very cool. Yeah, if people are looking for a fun, pretty violent thriller, Dead Calm, highly recommend.
All right, boys and Kim, let's hang dong and talk Abel Ferrara's
Oh my God.
1992 Bad Lieutenant.
Oh my God. I heard that downstairs and I was like, oh God, I know that scene, and brutal.
Drew, set up Bad Lieutenant for the kids at home.
All right. If you somehow have not seen Bad Lieutenant, it follows an unnamed protagonist that goes by Lieutenant, and it is over the course of a National League Championship series between the New York Mets and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Go Dodgers. I'm repping the Dodgers.
Oh, you have your Dodgers shirt.
Oh, damn.
Amazing.
Oh, damn.
In honor of this film. So it continues as he is placing more and more bets, getting deeper and deeper into his gambling as well as his drug addiction. Meanwhile, there is a brutal rape of a nun, and the Catholic Church puts up a $50,000 reward for whoever catches the rapists. So while the lieutenant is trying to meet his debts for his gambling, he is also chasing down these rapists.
And indulging in his many bad habits.
Vices.
Many vices.
Many.
Which include alcohol, cocaine, crack, and heroin.
Oh, yeah.
And sex.
Sexual.
Sexual assault.
Depravity.
A lot of assault, I would say.
Harvey Keitel, he plays the titular role in one of the most epic, I'm just like critical, like critic words are coming to mind, but it truly is one of the most memorable performances of all time.
This is a 1992 Abel Ferrara movie, which is co-written by himself and Zoe Lund, who is the star of his previous movie, Miss 45, which is a personal favorite.
She's also in this.
Yes. And she actually shoots up heroin on camera. That's real when she does.
Oh my God. That fucking scene was brutal, dude.
Yes.
So tough.
And Harvey Keitel shoots up saline
Oof.
injections when he's on camera.
Yeah, the drug use and the sex and the violence. This is an NC-17 movie.
Intentionally, by the way, if I may interject real quick, when he was pitching the movie, it was, if you want to make this R-rated, you will get $6 million. Mind you, the film he made previously was King of New York,
So good.
I love that movie.
starring Christopher Walken, and that had a $5 million budget.
Okay.
And at a point in time, Christopher Walken was attached to be the Bad Lieutenant,
Oh,
infamously calls him and says, I can't give you what you need. I can't do it. So he backed out, and enter Harvey Keitel. So $6 million, you make an R-rated movie. If you want to make it NC-17, you only get $2 million. And he chose NC-17. This wasn't a situation where he made a movie and it's like, oh my God, the MPAA is boning me.
Yeah.
interesting.
It was known from the beginning, this is an NC-17 film.
He's a badass.
Yes.
In some of the research that I did, it seemed like when Christopher Walken was still attached to the project, it was going to be like maybe a little bit more comedic. And when Keitel came on board, he kind of brought a darkness and heaviness to the script and the character. Also, apparently the script was only about 65 pages, so a lot of it is improv and made up on the spot.
I found the script and I read it before we did this. And
Damn, Drew.
yeah, when I found it, at first I was like, this formatting looks strange. The margins are huge and the kerning for the text is quite large. And then on one of the special features, they talk about how they changed the formatting because it was only 60 pages so that it was 80 something pages, which it was like 80 something pages. I think on one of like the special features, they say like it's probably like 70% scripted, you know, and then the rest is improvised. And I think that's pretty accurate. If you are a filmmaker and you're listening, or you're just somebody who's curious, like how improv can be utilized as like a technique to make your film better, I think this is probably one of the best examples of like, you know, they're dealing with a very limited budget. They're shooting on location. You're going to get what you're going to get. But then also the improv allows for an actor, like Sam just said, to come in and give life to a character that you could not get on a page. You can't write his sexual assault scene. Mm-hmm. That is one of like the things that they refer to as like, you know, all it says is kinky foreplay ensues or something like that. Him telling them what to do and all that stuff is all Harvey Keitel. And no one knew what they were going to do. They didn't rehearse that. They just filmed it.
It's a very obviously disturbing scene, and it's so long.
Yeah.
It takes so long, you know, in a pretty short film that you just are like sitting and stuck with this horrible moment. But it is very memorable, to say the least.
Yeah, the, you know, sort of like elongated moments are very Warhol and very Pasolini. And I listened to a commentary track for his first film, 9 Lives of a Wet Pussy, which has a really great commentary track by a film historian Sam Deegan or something like that. Vinegar Syndrome put this out. Yeah, Sam Deegan. She has this quote from a book about Abel Ferrara, and he's quoted saying when he was in like college and making stuff, we were very into Warhol and Pasolini. And I think that this is an extremely Pasolini film, especially with like Catholicism and, you know, sexual depravity and just the human existence, human condition, all of these sorts of things.
There's definitely a huge kind of Catholic faith, crisis of faith, you know, repenting theme to this film, very similar to Mean Streets, you know, a similar kind of, I wouldn't say role for Harvey Keitel, but arena to be working in. This is a much, much darker movie than Mean Streets.
Yes, which we saw a double bill. Kurt and Kim, do you remember this? At the New Bev, we saw a double bill of Bad Lieutenant and Mean Streets.
Oh, I forgot that was the second movie.
Yeah.
I had to leave because I was so disturbed from Bad Lieutenant that I was like, I can't hang. I mean, I had seen Mean Streets, but I was like, I got to go.
You know, after high school, I kind of like stopped paying attention to Abel Ferrara and kind of like a kill your idol sort of way of distancing. But ever since post-lockdown, I've always wound up at a screening of one of his movies. Like there's, even on the last pod we did, you know, I mentioned The Night of the Juggler and Miss 45. And I stuck around for Miss 45 and I loved it, which I mean, of course, I'd seen countless times. I'm just saying I hadn't reevaluated his films.
Is he still alive?
Sometime.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he is. He's in Italy.
Oh, that's right. I knew that.
He just did that Shia LaBeouf.
Yes.
What is he? Is he a priest or a...
He's a monk.
A priest?
I thought he was a monk.
A monk? Yeah.
Yeah, Shia's a monk.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen like any of his newer films since 444 Last Day on Earth.
Okay.
But I will say, so real quick, just to double back to that screening that we had gone to maybe a year or so ago, I had a really bad time with Bad Lieutenant. Not really because of the subject matter or anything like that, but the sound was quiet. I remember it was just a stereo mix, and sometimes a print is just kind of quiet. You just get what you get. The crowd, the audience was really terrible.
Oh,
they were like
terrible.
talking throughout it. And then like, it is like, of course, a controversial sort of provocative film. So like it will elicit laughter and snickers at stuff, of course. But like, there's a certain level of maturity I would assume people would have at seeing a movie like that, and it was not displayed.
No, it was constant. It was like every time someone was about to do drugs, like half the theater was like, oh.
Yeah,
like,
so stupid.
Okay,
ruined the movie.
Truly, screenings like that are really tough because it's like this thing, and especially if you're a person who really loves to go to screenings, and especially repertoire screenings, and you really want to put yourself in the mindset of an adult in 1992 seeing this for the first time and this and that, and then you have some fucking boner behind you just giggling the whole time.
Yeah,
it is really annoying and can really kind of take you out of the movie and and paint. What's unfortunate is that it can paint the movie in a certain way, which makes it hard to go back to later.
Yeah.
I feel like, Sam, this is what bonded us as friends in the first place, because that type of shit was happening in our like theory classes in college. There'd just be like idiots in the back, and Sam and I would just like
This kid
meet eyes across the room and be like, these assholes.
fucking wearing rollerblades to fucking college. But yeah, I hadn't seen this.
Ever?
Wow.
I had never seen it.
I didn't know
so I worked a long day. I treated myself to a double feature of a couple lieutenants last night.
Amazing.
What a night.
Sam, what did you think of this?
I don't know. It's hard. I think is it weird to say that it's like I think I liked my time with it? I'm not totally sure. It's a really ugly movie. I mean, it like looks nice, but the subject matter is gnarly and it's gross and it feels dirty. And it felt like one of those movies where like afterwards I was like, oh, I should probably take a shower.
Yeah.
Yes.
While King of New York has a lot of intense scenes and there's like intense stuff in the movie, there's a level of fun to that movie that this movie just does not have at all. I mean, even before I had done any of the research I did after I watched it, the scene with Zoe Lund shooting up, I was like, oh, that person's actually shooting up heroin right now. Like, and it feels gross and her apartment's disgusting. But I ultimately liked it. It's one of those weird movies that I'm going to keep, but I don't know the next time that I'm just going to like throw Bad Lieutenant on. In comparing it to Mean Streets, I feel like Marty's entire project of what Catholicism means to him and what redemption can look like is not, I didn't get it as much of that in this movie, while there are overt scenes of redemption or what that may look like in the mind of these characters. This one felt like way more intense than Mean Streets does.
It's funny that it's, also New York, as New York is just as much of a character in Bad Lieutenant as it is in Mean Streets, but it's a completely different New York. Obviously, there's 2 decades of time in between, but still, like, Abel Ferrara's New York is different than Martin Scorsese's New York.
Oh, without a doubt.
And it's a harder pill to swallow, and there's a reason that he is embraced in Europe, but not in America, because it's a very harsh look at an urban America.
It's a movie where you're like handcuffed to someone who is going down, and you are aware of that pretty much right away. And those movies are not for everyone, but this is, in my opinion, like an expertly executed example of that kind of thing. Like, you are in hell with someone who is a nightmare to be around, but the performance is so fascinating and the filmmaking is so engrossing. He pulls you into that New York in a way that is so visceral, and despite the subject matter, I find it kind of easy to return to. I the first time I had seen it was at that New Bev screening, and I think this was the 3rd time I watched it. I got a Blu-ray of it after that and watched it again, and there was a little bit of me like putting this disc in going, I kind of just watched this. Am I really ready for Bad Lieutenant again? But I was, and we'll get to it, but I watched them out of order.
Oh, okay.
So it was fun to see this one with the Nicolas Cage version kind of top of mind.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a movie that I kind of, I discovered Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino, like around when I was like 10 or something like that.
Yep.
And when you watch Reservoir Dogs and then you're watching Taxi Driver and you're just like, who is this guy? Who is Harvey Keitel? I then discover Bad Lieutenant, same year as Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, it's one of those movies when you see it really young, you kind of get desensitized to the subject matter and you just quickly get pulled into the filmmaking style of it. This sort of truly guerrilla filmmaking, filming without permits.
Yeah.
Camera on a guy's shoulder, just walking into hospitals, I listened to the commentary track and Abel Ferrara has this great quote. I texted it to myself because I really wanted to say it here. He said, talking about filming without a permit and everything. He said, you're better off with real people looking to the camera than extras trying to act like they're bystanders, is his outlook on things. And that's the kind of movie that you're dealing with. It is one of the greatest character studies of all time, in my opinion. If you're curious what a character-driven film is, as opposed to a story-driven or plot-driven film, I think a great companion piece to this is Abel Ferrara's previous film, as I mentioned, King of New York, which is story-driven. You know, you have scenes of other characters, but it's related to the plot or the themes or just the escalation of tension.
King of New York was kind of my point of entry for him. If people have never seen an Abel Ferrara movie, that I would recommend doing it that way.
Yeah.
I actually picked up the Arrow 4K King of New York this week as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
This was a great excuse to finally pick that up.
It's a great disc.
Yeah.
Have either of you guys seen Driller Killer?
No.
His movie?
Yes.
That was the first movie of his that I had ever heard of, and it was at a young age. I remember reading about it in a magazine at my dad's house when I was probably like 12, and I didn't know anything about it other than there was an image from the movie and the title Driller Killer, and I was like, that looks like the scariest, most fucked up thing on the planet. And I've since seen it, and it's fairly fucked up, but Bad Lieutenant feels way heavier and darker and more fucked up.
Bad Lieutenant is like actually a horror movie. Like, there's no movie bullshit in it. It is actually like nightmarish.
Interestingly enough, Driller Killer was photographed by Ken Kelch, the director of photography of Bad Lieutenant.
Oh, okay.
Abel Ferrara and Ken Kelch, who just passed away last year, I believe. They had a long-running collaboration once they made Bad Lieutenant. But they made Driller Killer, and then I guess they had a falling out. And then he needed a DP for Bad Lieutenant, and he got a hold of Ken Kelch, and I think they ended up making something like 14 movies together after that.
Wow.
Yeah, he basically shot all of Abel Ferrara's films following Bad Lieutenant.
Did we all watch the new Kino 4K?
Yes.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I did as well.
It's excellent.
It looks really nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Arrow seems to have a relationship with him. I'm really surprised that they are not the ones to have put this out.
I agree.
I can see them doing Miss 45 down the road. I mean, hopefully they do, because that one that Kurt, you have is way out of print.
Yeah, it is. A 4K from Arrow of Miss 45. Ooh.
Save it for your wish.
Yeah.
There was even a point where I was like, this is just as good as that film print that I saw, like a year ago. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to say it's better? But then at a certain point, the HDR kind of got a little too wonky, I would say. But that's just because I'm sure the source material that they're working with is very natural.
Yeah.
This is a 4K scan from the 35 millimeter camera negative. And yeah, the grain is really on display in 4K, and the nighttime stuff, like the lights of the streets and, the cars. A lot of this movie takes place in cars. It's a major step up from the Blu-ray that preceded it.
What's funny on the commentary track, it's with Abel Ferrara and Ken Kelch, the DP, and I'm like, is this a new one or whatever? And they keep referencing how bad it looks. So I looked it up, and it is archival.
Yeah.
It is an archival track.
There's a couple new special features, but not that one.
Correct. Yeah. But I was definitely like, are we looking at the same thing? Because he's talking about like, oh, I wish the blacks were richer. But I'm like, that looks pretty fucking rich to me, dude.
Yeah, it's always important, I feel like, to like do a little research on when the track is recorded. Whenever I listen to one,
yes,
it makes such a difference to know when in time they are.
Absolutely.
It's funny to point out that Keitel had like a pretty good 1992. He's in Bad Lieutenant. He is one of, I'd say, probably the main character of Reservoir Dogs.
Definitely.
And the big bad in My Beloved Sister Act, which is, a vastly different movie than the other two.
Damn, that's like Jim Carrey territory of Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura. It's rare to have three classics like that.
Very
Straight
true.
up.
Yeah.
I did not know that Bad Lieutenant was at Cannes at the same time as Reservoir Dogs. That's crazy.
What a fun year that would have been to be there.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I found interesting was like Roger Ebert was a huge supporter of Bad Lieutenant, specifically Harvey Keitel's performance. His review of that was something that like really helped, I guess, the film's run, and especially since it was NC-17, that means they couldn't do advertising in conventional movie platforms, I guess you could say.
Oh, you couldn't even cut like an approved for all audiences trailer for an NC-17?
I don't think so.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I don't think you could advertise in papers, and I don't think you could advertise at like multiplexes. Maybe like, I'm sure there was probably a trailer at the Music Box like around that time.
Something like that. Yeah. Independent family run sort of theaters,
Wow.
Which kind of still existed back then.
No wonder nobody wanted to make them.
Yeah. So like the producer, Edward Pressman, like I guess he put out a lot of ads that he paid for himself. You know, like he took out like full page ads in newspapers and stuff like that. So like Ebert gave him a really good review. I think he said something to the degree of like, of all movies that I saw at Cannes, the thing that I keep thinking about the most is Bad Lieutenant. The previous Abel Ferrara movie, King of New York, he gave a very bad review for.
Oh, interesting.
And so I think it's just a testament to how great of a critic Ebert was, that he was willing to vouch for a film that he clearly didn't really care for the previous work of that director.
And it's a ballsy movie to vouch for on
Yes.
a platform like Ebert's.
Emphasis on balls.
Yeah, I was just going to say, does Keitel get naked in the piano?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is this just like a thing he was doing at this time?
He was getting naked.
He's like, dude, we're hanging dong.
Dude, with a body like that, I mean, like, why
His
wouldn't
body's
you?
crazy.
His body is insane looking.
He's like, if a square had muscles.
Yeah.
I know. I was watching, I was like, damn, he'd be hard to push over.
Well, he's a Marine.
Yeah, that
was a Marine.
tattoo is apparently a real tattoo.
Was he a Marine before?
Age of 16.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. I was going to say before Taxi Driver.
What a fascinating person
Fascinating.
he is.
He rules.
Yeah.
He really does.
It's hard to think of a more vulnerable performance,
Without a
truly,
doubt.
than this performance that he gives.
Oh my God. It's haunting.
Kimberly, you did not revisit this one.
I will never watch this movie again in my life. It is too much for me. Because I'm very sensitive to drug movies and I can't handle them very well. So it took me a lot to see it at the New Beverly and not walk out.
Yeah.
Because this to me is worse than like sitting through a horror movie. I can suspend my belief. However, Bad Lieutenant felt really real and really scary and really, it was too much for me. But I am very glad it exists, and I'm glad I watched it once.
You know, especially in this day and age that we're living in, where there's like much more of an emphasis on police brutality, and there's way more cameras out there and everything. To be, you know, again, locked in with a character who is just deplorable in every single way. It's like a hard ask to be like, hey, sit down with this. Watch this person shoot up heroin. Watch this person sexually assault people, watch them hide behind this stupid fucking badge. I mean, it's an intense, hard watch.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, it is amazing to see someone like Ferrara just totally engross this cast and crew into a specific outlook of the world that did exist at that time and is a dark side, but to be so truthful, you know, I think, like I had said before, that it makes sense that American audiences didn't really grasp it when it came out. It's very un-American because of how truthful it is.
Yeah.
It makes sense why at its initial release, he was much more embraced by European audiences with this one.
I guess ultimately I would recommend the disc. I'd recommend the new Kino disc if you haven't seen this movie or you're interested in it or you have and you like it. That new disc looks really great. Kino, as always, classic cover art. This one has a slip sleeve. Get it while it's hot.
Drew, do you agree? Would you recommend this to listeners, this disc?
100%. Having seen it very recently on 35 millimeter at the New Beverly Cinema, I can say that this looks identical to that film print.
That's awesome.
It has never looked better, this movie.
Absolutely.
Proceed with caution. Okay, we have traveled from 1992 to 2009 for Werner Herzog's Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, which sees the titular Bad Lieutenant, played this time by none other than Nicolas Cage. We'll talk about the similarities, I'm sure, but the basic plot of this movie is Nicolas Cage is in the opening scene essentially like chronically injured while jumping into the floodwaters of Hurricane Katrina in a prison to save an inmate who is locked in his cell. We then jump 6 months later, and Nicolas Cage is self-medicating his pain with all sorts of drugs, and in the process of solving a mass murder linked to a drug deal, essentially.
Let's also point out that even before his injury, he's not a good person. Him and his partner, who's played by Val Kilmer, are taking bets on how quickly this guy who's locked in this jail cell is going to drown.
Yeah.
And then the drugs and alcohol really accent
Bring out the
his
bad.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I saw in the theater in 2009, and
Me too.
Did you see this at the Music Box?
great question. I don't remember. I'm going to say I saw it at the Landmark.
You did,
Okay.
because that's where I saw it as well.
Oh, funny.
I was 15 and I had my family come with.
Yes.
We saw it opening weekend at the Landmark Theater on Milwaukee. I think it's Milwaukee. I think it's on Milwaukee.
No, it was on Clark and
Oh, Clark.
it was on Clark and
Yeah.
Wrightwood.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite movies.
Is it still to this day?
Yes.
Wow.
I think that this is one of the funniest movies in my collection. Nicolas Cage's performance is like on the other side of the world from Harvey Keitel's.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the best way.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This movie is like everything we just talked about if it were a fucking cartoon.
Yep.
Yes.
And I love it. I hadn't watched it in several years and was a little bit like, oh no, is this gonna hold up? And Kim had never seen it. We watched it together. And like I was howling laughing at this movie.
It is hilarious.
Yes.
It is hilarious. My relationship with this movie, I was 15. I loved Werner Herzog. I couldn't believe he was making an American crime film that was also, because by then I had already seen Bad Lieutenant. And so it was like the idea of Werner Herzog making a spiritual sequel to Abel Ferrara and Harvey Keitel's Bad Lieutenant, directed by Werner Herzog and starring Nicolas Cage, was like the biggest mindfuck of all time. It was a follow-up that no one asked for. It was a collaboration that no one asked for. But from two artists, I would say, both Werner Herzog and Nicolas Cage, who are willing to go to a certain place that not a lot of other filmmakers ever would. And Werner Herzog being a filmmaker who has notable collaborations with actors who give it their all, talking Klaus Kinski and Bruno S. It was like a crazy just moment of mindfuckery.
It's a perfect match.
It sure is.
I think the combo of Herzog and Cage is a perfect match. I'm not sure it's a perfect match as far as subject matter goes.
Yeah, it's like it's slightly too long. It's, the iguanas are there, I guess.
Lizard vision is something to behold.
I read this quote from him that was like, I have my iguanas, and if they make me take out the iguanas, why I will never be a filmmaker ever again. And it's like, dog, what are these iguanas doing in this fucking movie?
Yeah. I feel like
making me laugh.
Yeah.
I love them. Yeah, there's like reptilian. I mean, we start the movie with a snake in the water, and then the crocodile.
It's like basically crocodile vision too. Like the shot of the crocodile's mouth
POV.
and eyeball, and it's just like kind of slowly breathing on the side of a road, and it's just like that for 25 seconds.
And I watched all the credits for this. I still have my disc from, I guess it must have been 16 years old, back when theatrical windows still existed.
Wow.
And it played totally fine. No skips, no nothing. But in the credits, it says alligator and iguana camera by Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
So
we laughed so much at that. It's just so funny.
Bad Lieutenant, directed by Abel Ferrara and starring Harvey Keitel, is like ordering steak from a steakhouse. But like Bad Lieutenant, directed by Werner Herzog, starring Nicolas Cage, is like ordering schnitzel from a steakhouse or something. It's just like it doesn't necessarily match up tonally. Like it feels like Herzog, in my opinion, there's just like there's too much story. There's too much numbers. Like Herzog could not care about gambling. Like there's just no way that he cares about gambling the way that like Abel Ferrara cares about gambling. And like the gambling comes in like 30 minutes and it's kind of, it just feels like this like whatever afterthought, which for what it is, it's totally fine in my opinion, you know, but it is like, if we're talking to compare, I guess it's inevitable. It's unavoidable to compare these two films. The Herzog moments that we're talking about, the iguanas, his soul is still dancing, the alligator stuff. It just feels crammed in to a movie that then he also very competently directs. This is a little bit of like a 7 out of 10. In my opinion.
To me, it felt like kind of a bad version of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like, it has, like, moments like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I really enjoyed it because it was just, like, such a departure.
There's nothing like it.
There's nothing like it, and, like, nothing's quite taken seriously.
No, not at all. I mean...
It's very, like, a precursor to something like Inherent Vice, I would say.
Yeah.
I think it's ahead of its time.
I had a good time with this movie for sure. It was interesting to watch them back to back because I really did like, you know, the first one really made me kind of feel something and this one just doesn't. It's like it's super wrapped up in a tight little package. Honestly, the scene in which he goes into the police station and everyone just comes up to his desk to be like, hey, everything works out perfectly. I was like
so
peeing
funny.
in my pants laughing because that scene is like, yeah. Shea Wiggum's incredible. I mean, the cast of this movie is nuts.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Shea Wiggum, Michael Shannon, Exhibit, like Brad Dourif. People are just popping up in this movie
Eva
left and right.
And Fairuza Balk was the ticket officer that you were mentioning.
Jennifer Coolidge.
Jennifer Coolidge. Yeah.
Oh, she's so great in
so
this.
Good.
That kid from The Faculty.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer.
And Val. Yeah. Like, what? It's crazy he's in there.
Just because he likes getting high doesn't mean he stopped being a police.
I do want to say real quick, that moment, Sam, that ending moment that you're talking about, I distinctly remember in the theater, it breaking my brain. Just sitting there 15 years old, like, there's no way this is happening right now. This is amazing.
Well, because it also feels like this part where you're like, oh, is he fucked up and imagining that this is what's happening?
It's very much the end of Taxi Driver, like the note on the newspaper article on the bulletin board that's like, he saved the day.
Sybil Shepherd hopping in the cab.
Exactly.
Was it just me, or does Nicolas Cage like develop an accent halfway through the movie?
Yes.
It's insane.
He sounds like Humphrey Bogart halfway through this movie for no reason.
For no reason. And his like, oh my God. His little, like, his shoulder.
Yeah, well, I actually really like that. I really like the posture thing of it because it's like you see him hurt his back, or I guess you see him jump into the water, and then we're told his back has been messed up, and without kind of like highlighting it a crazy amount, he walks with this weird posture for the rest of the movie. Which it really does look like he's in pain, like constant pain. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is one of those times where it's like Nicolas Cage made this choice and it is actually working out really well.
He commits so hard to it.
But then there are scenes where his, like, one of his shoulders is like 12 inches lower than the other one. It is absurd. Yeah. It's absurd.
It's totally absurd.
When he's like, what does he say? He goes, you like watching me fuck your girlfriend? He's like got the car with her.
And like, that's just, to me, it's like, to compare the two movies, you know, it's just like, that's a great example of like how truly dark the Ferrara one is. Because he, like in the Nicolas Cage one, it feels very written. Like, wait, they're having sex right now? And, you know, their dialogue and everything. Whereas like in Keitel's, it's just so dark that he's just masturbating and telling them, like, barking orders at them. It's like so perverse and just like, if you're gonna do a rape scene, it should make you feel gross. You shouldn't be like, this is funny, you know? And so like, I think that's where some of my like kind of instinctual like issues with the Herzog film are.
In both movies, the lieutenant has a revolver. And in the Herzog one, it's like 6 times the size of the one in the Ferrara one. So it's like every time. And Nicolas Cage just keeps it in his pants the entire time.
Showing people all the time.
It's
this,
so
Looney Tunes gun that he uses.
Truly, I remember seeing it the first time. The scene in which he goes back to the old lady's house and
describe that scene, Sam. Describe that scene from this movie.
He has lost a witness to this murder that he was supposed to keep his eyes on. So he goes to that witness's grandmother's house or like assisted living place. And he starts questioning his grandmother and her friend where the kid might be. And they don't want to tell him.
He's
and
hiding behind the door when they walk in.
He starts like losing it, and he's like pulling their oxygen mask off, and he's like strangling one of the women with it, and he's like, "You fucking make me sick. I should kill both of you right now." And he's just like barking at them to figure out where this kid is, and they're both like, "What's going on?" Like they're like, "Okay, yeah, we put him on a plane to London. You can't get near him anymore." And he gets so mad, and he takes out his dumb massive gun, and he's like waving it in their faces, and he's like, "I should kill both of you right fucking now. I'm gonna shoot you. I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking head."
And he's just little
like,
old ladies.
You kind of can't help but just laugh like uncontrollably at that point. But it does. It's there's no in this one. There's no real menace to any of it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just like an interesting choice to doing this as like a spiritual successor to the other one.
To your point, Drew, like this is like admittedly irresponsible stuff to be laughing at. Absolutely. And the take on it is like not appropriate compared to Ferrara's. It's a movie about, in my opinion, a performance.
Mm-hmm.
And Herzog rolls out a carpet for Nick Cage to absolutely shine. And that's sort of what it's all about to me. Just him.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, this is a comedy. Like,
it is,
hands
100%,
down to me.
yes.
Like, I did not take it
comedy.
seriously. Yes, it's dark, but it's also, I don't know. It's the Nick Cage show. He's just let loose.
Yes.
And it is dark, but it really like ends on such like a positive, fine note that it's like, I guess it's kind of dark. I guess it's like...
There's a lot of sweetness in this movie. There's an incredible score throughout this, but in particular, there's a soft side to the movie that's brought out with this softer theme that they use.
Yeah.
And I love that so much.
It reminded me of like an 80s, like Walter Hill kind of outlook on the crime film, like a very 48 hours type of movie.
Yeah. I don't love that there's like not much of a comeuppance.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit hard. It can be a bit hard in movies when it's like you're watching a shitty person do shitty things to people and then nothing really happens to them.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I think, my gut is I completely agree with you. But I will say like that is what makes this movie funny is that
he like saves the day.
Yeah, exactly. It is consistent with its outlook on the world throughout the film.
Yeah.
And it has kind of an optimistic yet complex path forward for him at the end.
Sure.
Yes.
I like that a lot about it, that he's struggling, but by the end of the movie, I mean, unlike Keitel, you kind of fall in love with him a little bit and you're rooting for him on some level.
100%.
At least I did.
Yeah, same.
You enjoyed this one, Kim?
I did. I mean, it's just like pure absurdity. I love that you love it, Kurt, so much. I don't think it's like a very good film at all.
It hits its mark. It hits its mark, though. Like, define what a good film is. This movie is exactly what it's trying to be.
But I do think the original Bad Lieutenant is a good film. Like, it's a masterpiece, and if you will. However, it makes me want to die when I watch it.
According to Herzog on Wikipedia, he said, "I haven't seen it, so I can't compare it. It has nothing to do with it." So
what?
He fully denied it being a remake.
He's gone on record saying he wanted to change the title.
Exactly.
I remember that when I was a kid being like, oh, okay, that's the most Herzog way to make a sequel to something. I think it's undeniable. The relationship that the two movies share. I think thematically there literally are the same scenes sometimes.
Yes. Especially the Brad Dourif character.
Yes. Yeah, the Brad Dourif character.
And the sexual assault, like, stop
Yes.
of the girls is repeated
Yes.
sort of twice in its own way in this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, I just feel like Herzog is a little out of his element in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, that is what makes it fun. And so if you're just coming at it wanting to see a fun neo-noir thing, I think it's a great time. It's a very, very great time. I definitely recommend it if you have not seen it. And if you like crime films, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's so bizarre.
I would also say it's like pretty by the book in terms of like a crime movie, right? Like it's you get introduced to some characters, or you get introduced to a policeman, he's got to solve a crime, and then the rest of the movie is him trying to solve that crime.
Yeah. And again, that's why I think it is successful, because the frame within which it lives is so cliche and conventional that the outrageousness of the protagonist and the way that kind of sets the tone for everything around it is what makes it interesting.
Yeah, I get the feeling that there were like moments probably on set where Herzog was like, why do we have to film this like this? Why do they have to say this? And they're like, well, if you don't have them say the thing about the game, then we lose that continuity of the storyline. And he's like, oh, okay.
Okay, we'll shoot.
You know?
Yes.
Like, if you want to see him in his element, literally the same year, I'd highly recommend My Son, What Have You Done? It is all bonkersness.
Mm-hmm.
According to Wikipedia, Abel Ferrara, they have a whole section on his reaction. Abel Ferrara is quoted as saying, "As far as remakes go, I wish these people die in hell. I hope they're all in the same streetcar and it blows up." And Herzog's response is of Ferrara. He says, "I've never seen a film by him. I have no idea who he is." And then he also said, "I would like to meet the man. I have a feeling that if we met and talked over a bottle of whiskey, I should add, I think we could straighten everything out." And I think that's true.
Yeah. And I guess they did end up meeting, and then they were cool.
I read something that they met, I think, at Cannes years later and like hung out for like 4 hours and loved one another.
A happy ending.
Comparing Herzog and Abel Ferrara, they film-wise, like techniques, are extremely similar.
Yeah.
They don't care about scripts. They love improv. They love their actors. They are more the type of filmmaker that are about wrangling talent. Everything that you see, everything that you hear is what you get. And they're very like-minded in their aesthetics. If there were anyone to make a Bad Lieutenant that is not Abel Ferrara, it's unbelievably kismet that it's Herzog of all filmmakers to do it. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for them hanging out for 4 hours.
Yes, absolutely. This movie's on Blu-ray from 2009.
Yeah, I had to rent it off Amazon. Can we just fucking please plead on all streamers, when a movie ends, let the fucking credits play, for
seriously.
God's sake. It is so crazy to me, especially because I don't have Prime, so I had to rent it on Prime. So then it's like starting in 5 seconds, something you don't have access to.
Yeah. Fuck streaming. Well,
I
that's
agree.
why we're here, Sam. That's why we're here talking about discs.
Good grief,
Some of us
man.
still have our DVDs of it. Okay, Sam.
Okay. Before we go, as we always do, it's time to make wishes for movies to be released on a physical format that they do not yet exist on. You guys ready?
Yes. I wish for the Jade Pussycat on 4K or Blu-ray. I'll take whatever.
I wish for the Night Flyer on Blu-ray or 4K as well.
I wish for Crimson Tide in 4K. Nice. Drew, tell us about it.
So the Jade Pussycat, in honor of Abel Ferrara's start with smut, I thought I might as well submit some smut here for the wish list. The Jade Pussycat is a movie starring John C. Holmes, directed by the one and only Bob Chin. It's an installment in the Johnny Wad film series.
Johnny Wad?
Yeah, this is like what Brock Landers and Chest Rockwell from Boogie Nights is like inspired by.
Yeah, cool.
He's like his, porn Bond sort of thing. I have an original one sheet of this movie. It's a very classic porn film. I'm surprised there is not a Blu-ray or a 4K from like Vinegar Syndrome or their sister company, Mezzanine, but I think it's perfect for it. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some weird like mob related funding and that's why there is no proper release of this. I think the most recent release is on DVD.
So this is like an X-rated movie?
Oh yeah, baby.
Okay. Wow. First X-rated wish, Drew. Congratulations.
Oh. Thank you. I'll take it.
I wished for a movie called The Night Flyer. It's from 1997. It's actually based on a Stephen King short story. I don't even know if it's good. I watched it once. It's about a vampire. There's an incredible scene towards the end of the movie. And I just remember like thinking that the movie was way more fun than I thought it was going to be. There was a lot of cool practical effects used in it. It seems like it's kind of like ripe for the picking for Arrow. It's about a newspaper and like journalist who's investigating these disappearances from all over these small airports like across the country. And he's played by Miguel Ferrar. Who is that? How you pronounce his last name?
From Twin Peaks?
Yeah. Who's also in Deep Star 6, actually. But I read the short story. I thought it was fine. I watched the movie and was like, this is actually awesome. I don't think it's been put out on anything other than DVD. So I would love a Blu-ray or a 4K of it.
I don't know that one.
I don't think anybody really does. It didn't make any money. It came and went. I would be hard pressed to think it even had a theatrical run. This fucking scene. It's like a vampire like kills an entire airport. It's fucking awesome.
What?
That's insane.
It's so cool.
Crimson Tide is a 1995 Tony Scott submarine movie starring Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman. Hackman is the captain of a nuclear sub who brings Denzel on as like a new XO. And essentially it's a movie about the two of them conflicting over whether to launch nuclear missiles. And it's so intense. Features one of the all-time Hans Zimmer scores.
Oh.
Just a banger of a blockbuster from the 90s.
Incredible movie.
Yeah, how do we not have a 4K of this?
Yeah, I know. So this is in the same sort of zone, I think, as like The Rock. This is a Disney Buena Vista Blu-ray that currently exists, and I don't really understand who holds the power for that kind of thing anymore. But yeah, it's a similar zone as The Rock. This is also a Jerry Bruckheimer, Don Simpson collaboration. It also features Viggo Mortensen and James Gandolfini. They're both on the ship as well. Just a banger.
The King and the Don.
There you go.
Tarantino did script punch-ups for it.
Yes, that's true.
My guess is that Kino puts this out in the next 6 months to a year.
One can dream. One can wish.
One can wish. Okay, that's it for our episode. Thank you so much to Patrick Laban for our music, Kimberly for producing. Thank you to Sam as always. And Drew, thanks for coming back, man.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Another, just like The Departed, Bad Lieutenant is a movie that's been a part of me for a long time. So I was very honored to be featured in this episode.
Hell yeah, buddy.
Thanks for coming by.
We love you, Drew. Thank you.
Love you guys.
We'll see you guys next week. We're going to do volume 3 of our Shame Pile series. And this time, it's all about action movies. We'll see you then.